Hello, everyone. Welcome to Scrapbook Live. I am Megan Jacks. Today is Wednesday, April 24th. And the layout I have for you guys today is one I shared. I'm not sure whether I shared it a couple years ago, closer to 18 months. I'm pretty certain it was around fall of 2022, somewhere in there, maybe early 2023. This layout, I shared this with my customers. It was using one of the autumn texture paper packs that was like a 5 or a 6 pack of paper, and the autumn leaves punch, but showed how to use the jumbo circle to fold it, kind of just give you that when you're looking for a little bit more of a fancy page and you just want, it's a single page layout. You could expand it to 2 by making a companion page. But this particular layout was something I already had in my arsenal, I guess, back there in my vault of ideas I've shared with my customers, but I haven't quite shared wider. So I thought that'd be a fun one to do today, and partially because I already had the handout done. I didn't have to do really any work other than schedule the live and present it to you today. But you will notice on the handout, there is a QR code that will take you to a video. It'll take you to the original video I made on showing my customers how to make this. So if you really do want to see how to make it using the autumn leaves punch, or the autumn leaves punch, the technique that I use to do that should be similar for all of the blue and white border punches. I'm going to demo it today using a Border Maker cartridge. So some of the details when it comes to punching the circle for the ring is going to be a little bit different because Border Maker cartridges and border punches have a different measurements that are required. So that's something to keep in mind. I'm going to be using a Border Maker cartridge today. That's the black, smaller punches. If you want to use it with the blue and white border style punches, but not the frame style, you're going to want to follow what's on the handout. So Border Maker cartridges and frame punches, you'll follow the directions I give you today. So have a pencil available to write those down on your handout. And if you're using a border punch, a blue and white traditional border punch like autumn leaves, I'm trying to think of the other ones we have that would easily do the ring. You have to experiment a little bit to find which ones will go in the circle well. So I'm going to go ahead, flip over here to my overhead camera, and I will show you what we've got going on. So I did want to make this a little bit more springtime. Or summer, it's actually summertime. So I am going back with the Sun Rays for Days collection. I pulled this paper here is actually the same paper. So this, where it's orange with the suns and the clouds, the opposite side is the blue. But for the picture that I always like to preview, it's easier to show that we're using both sides. This is what I'm going to use to cut the folded circle, but I'm going to cheat a little bit. But this is the paper, so it's both sides here. You can see nice contrast. If you see the original sample here, when I show you in the pictures, you have some nice contrast between both sides of your paper. And that's just going to allow the design of the folded circle pieces to stand out. So I would encourage you to have a little bit of contrast. You also, I will be completely honest with you, you might want to practice this cutting technique first on a separate piece of paper. I have the cover sheet from the Copper Canyon collection. I'm actually going to demo it for you on this because I already had the one, I cut the one last night because I wanted to make sure I liked how it looked. So I've already got my final circle done, but I'm going to show you how to do it on just a scrap piece of paper. And that's what I would recommend you do as well. We're going to be using the jumbo circle. We're going to be using binder clips. We're going to be folding. It's sometimes easier just to go ahead and do that on some scratch paper first, and then you can come back and do it on your pretty paper next. So have a piece of that available, and you will want it preferably to be something thinner. So if you have the more current style of the cover sheets here that are more the same weight as our designer paper, that's perfect. Cardstock is just harder to fold. So if you have cardstock or the older cover sheets that are a little bit thicker, you want something that you can easily fold to practice that fold. So I'm going to be, as I mentioned, this is going to be my circle that I fold. I am going to punch using the Sunshine Arch Border Maker cartridge, and I'm going to punch it in Buttercup. I just like Buttercup. It's one of my favorite yellows. It's a nice bright yellow, not quite as intense as Solar, but not quite as pale as canary. And so I wanted that nice bright sun. It goes really well with the suns that are part of this page. And then my background piece is going to be this grass paper that is from the, in 2022, we had this summer texture pack. So there was a 6-pack of various colors. The opposite side to it is kind of like the night sky. Okay, so those are the papers I'm using. So we're going to get started. I'm going to try to follow along with my directions here. We will start by cutting with using our jumbo circle. You're going to need your jumbo circle and your red blade. I have the blue out. I'm going to use that later when I cut my buttercup that I'll be punching with the border maker cartridge. So I'm going to set that to the side for the moment. Got my jumbo circle. I do have some binder clips, and these are the smaller binder clips. So you're going to want to have some smaller binder clips. You're basically going to want to be able to have a binder clip that you can clip to the inside track of the jumbo circle. I do see a question from Kim on any tips on which BMC to select. BMCs that work really well for this, you kind of have to experiment a little bit on which BMCs will go in the round. We're basically going to be punching. It doesn't have to make a chain or a ring. The Sunshine Arches doesn't make a ring. It stays attached to the paper. And so I'm going to have more like a disc behind there that I could use. And I'll talk a little bit about how to make it a ring if I wanted to. But what's nice about Sunshine Arches, you can see it's all contained inside the punch itself. So it doesn't, the bite makes the pattern. It doesn't extend over to another one. So when you have a self-contained pattern like this, meaning that you can punch once and get the entire picture or the entire thing, you will be able, it just makes it easy. So things like Sunshine Arches works well for that. I'm looking over at my BMCs that are going to do it really well. On the road will go well. I moved my BMCs out of the way, so I can't just sit here and spin my cartridges. It's over my calyx. So you may just have to play around. When I'm punching this when we punch the circle, I'll talk about it a little bit more. So I'll come back to that a little bit. So just bear with me a little bit. Let's get through the first part here, and then we'll revisit what kind of punches work well. So I need to use, I mentioned having a scrap piece of paper to do this first part. So, because we're going to make this folded circle. All right. So I'm going to go ahead, grab I told you I was going to use the copper. Oh, I can't use that one. It's got all sorts of markings on the back of it. Hold on one quick second. I've got to find, I had already written all over the back side of this one. And so it won't work out as well. I guess I should have checked that beforehand. Well, it's just going to have to work, I think. I don't have any other, bear with me. Yeah, you guys can hardly see it. So we're going to go ahead and use our jumbo circle on here. And we are going to want to center our jumbo circle on this page. So first you're going to want to put your background piece on your 13 by 13 cutting mat, and you're going to want to have it nice and centered. Make sure you take the time to line it up on here. You're going to want to have a pencil available. So we're going to use the red blade on the outside track. Line up if you've got your points measured here, or you've got the 12, 3, 6, and 9, or the 0, 90, 180, 270 should be marked, and that's going to help you center that. I should have had that also highlighted in my blog article to help you know how to mark your jumbo circle. So if you don't have your jumbo circle marked, I do have a handout and a video on how to do that. I'll share those links later. I have it all centered, lining up the 0 or the 12 o'clock with my 6-inch. 3 o'clock is lined up at the 6-inch here. 6 o'clock at the bottom is lined up with 6 inches. So that's centered. I'm going to go ahead and use my red blade on the outside track. Now the thing here, when I do this, I do not want first of all, I don't want my circle to move. So I'm going to try to keep, you have little silicone pads on here. If you keep your pressure points, like your fingers, on those silicone pads, that will help keep your jumbo circle in place. The other thing I want to do is after I'm done cutting, I do not want to lift my pattern. I want to leave my pattern in place. All right. So I'm going to go ahead, cut all the way around with the red blade. Okay. The next thing I need to do is we're going to go ahead and use our binder clips. We're going to use our binder clips and we're going to mark where we have our 12 o'clock, where our black dot is for the 12 o'clock, or the 0 for the degrees. I'm going to go ahead and put a binder clip. I'm going to put the center of the binder clip over that. So the center, these are the smaller binder clips. I'm going to put that center right over where I've got that black dot. So see, Janelle's asking about the silicone pads. I'm pretty certain even the current jumbo patterns, a lot of the patterns have little silicone pads. They're little clear pads on the back side of the patterns. And if you put the pressure there, that's helped just keep things from moving around. It's on the jumbo circles themselves, unless it's not a feature of the new ones. I have an older one that I'm using right now. So I'm going to put it, if you have 4 jumbo or 4 binder clips, you can put all 4 around. So noon, 3, 6, and 9. I just have 2 for right now, so that's what I'm going to keep in place. Then I'm going to grab my red blade again, inside track, and I'm going to go ahead and go from binder clip to binder clip. So if you ever made the dinner plate layout that I have shared before, it's a similar technique, using the binder clips kind of to help us stop. If you don't have binder clips, you can probably go until your edge of your blade comes kind of close to the line here. But if you have the binder clips, and binder clips are just such a handy little tool to have, that they're not very expensive, to just grab a couple of those. But these, you do want the smaller ones for this. And then after you do one pass, you're going to just move your binder clips around. And you're just going to use your red blade from clip to clip on the inside track. What this is doing is giving us that space that we're going to be able to fold. It's going to help separate pieces of the ring without separating the entire ring. And then we'll come back up here at the top and put that in place again. One thing when you're cutting these, if you have the style that just turn to make sure you get a flat edge of your hexagon here against your binder clip. There's a bit of a buffer, and when we fold, you'll see that we actually aren't folding exactly on the cut line. So that works out fine if it's not perfect, but if you can, just go ahead and just make sure the flat edge hits the binder clip. All right, so we are done with the red blade. Keep your jumbo circle in place. We're going to remove our binder clips. And then we're going to do is you're going to come and you can do it on the inside edge. You can do it on the very edge of the outside. Is you're going to mark at the 6-inch mark. So where it comes down 6 inch should also be at 0. You're going to mark that. We want to find these 6 inches, these halfway points all the way around our circle, because that's going to be. And the other thing I should be telling you too, you might be working with the paper. If you're working with 2-sided paper, which you should be, because that's how the design works, is you'd want to be working from the back side right now, though. As long as you use light pencil marks, you should be able to erase them. So you would be working from the back side, but sometimes we know the back side of the paper, we're actually going to be folding it, so both sides will be shown. But you want to use probably either the back side, or if one side is really busy compared to the other in terms of the pattern, you can't see your pencil marks, well, work for the side that you can see the pencil mark, because you will want to see those pencil marks. All right, so now I'm able to pull away this piece, and don't let this piece go too far. You will want to use it. If this is the part you're practicing, this doesn't matter. When you're ready to do your final design, you will want to keep this outer piece available. We do use it for a component of the design. So if this is just your practice piece, you can just toss this aside. If it's your final piece that you're doing, you want to keep this. Don't let it get bent up. So now I can go ahead and I can remove my jumbo circle. And what I'm going to be able to do here is I've got my pencil marks. I see my pencil marks here. I'm going to grab this outer ring and I'm going to come up here. I'm going to fold so that I'm starting to create a point at 6 inches. And I'll come down here, and so I'm creating a fold that lines up at 6 inches. And here you can see 6 inches to 6 inches. It's a little bit hard because I don't have a lot of contrast here, but you'd start to see how the pieces are coming together. So what I've done is I've created this first fold, and then you just work your way around to create folding at 6 inches. Do your best to make sure the rest of the design stays flat. So when you bring your hand in here, because I practiced this before, and if you don't keep things flat over here, they can kind of bend, and then your whole circle won't sit flat on your page. Take your time doing the folds. I would not crease. When you fold one side, don't crease it. Fold the second side for the second side of that, and then crease both together, making sure that the rest of your design stays flat. And there you should have your folded rings, or the folded circle. So this is my third or fourth one I've made, so it came together pretty quickly. If it's your first one, you may have a little more struggle with it, and that's why you've done it with practice paper first. But what ultimately you'll end up with is your pretty folded ring, and you'll have some nice, depending on the paper you use, have some nice contrast, or maybe you will have a little bit more subtle differences if you've gone a little bit more tonal. Maybe you want a more of an understated, lower energy layout, depending on your photos and your themes. But there is our centerpiece. So next up, that gets us through step 6 on the handout. We've got our piece. Now, step 7 is where we're working with that outside circle. I still have my outside circle, or my outside piece. What we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and cut it into 4 pieces. So we're going to grab our trimmer. This larger piece we're going to cut into 4 pieces, and we're going to cut it so it's cut at 6 inches. Line up the top here, and I'm going to cut at 6 inches. If I make sure everything is flat, I'll be able to come down and cut at the bottom as well. Just make sure it's nice and straight on there. And I'll do the same at the top. So I've got 4 pieces here. Step 8, we're going to be trimming off a 1/2 inch from each of the straight sides. So if we look at these pieces, we have a rounded edge and we have 2 straight sides. We're going to cut off a 1/2 inch from the rounded edge, and that's going to give us those corner pieces. You may or may not use the corner pieces, so if you want to skip this part for right now, you can wait to see how your design comes together. I'm going to go ahead and make them just to keep in line with the overall directions. So I'm going to come in here, cut it off at 1/2 inch. I'll flip it over, cut it at 1/2 inch again. And now you can see I have more of that wedge. It has a very pointed ends. A couple more of these, and then we'll be ready to start punching our circle. How many of you have punched in the round, have used your punches and have punched in the round, that you've done that before? You should share those in comments. Let me know if you've punched in the round before. These scraps can all be saved for another project if you're that type of person. I don't know, would you guys normally save these kind of scraps? I'm going to put these in my folder. They'll go in the top edge of my folder for this, my Sun Rays for Days collection. I never know when I might need those. But we flip this side over, working out. We've just completed step 9. We've got those 4 corner pieces that we'll be able to use later. So now we're going to move on to step 10, which is the starting of punching our circle. If you are using a blue and white border punch, you would want to follow the directions that are given in here. There is a video that is also on here. The QR code here takes you to a video where I actually make this entire layout and show you how it's done. This was shared when I first started this today's session. I explained that this was a layout that I had used with my customers before, back in maybe fall of 2022. So kind of pulled it out of the vault to share today. And this video, this QR code will take you to that original video. So today, to mix it up a little bit, I am actually going to use a border maker cartridge rather than the border punch. So one thing I want you to note here with the border punch, typically with the border punches, the blue and white border punches, you would use the red blade on the inside track, but every punch is a little bit different. So here I found what worked best for autumn leaves was actually to use a green blade. You need a little bit of a bigger circle to make autumn leaves work better. So what you can do though is you have to experiment a little bit. So if you're punching in the round for the first time, you're definitely going to want to have a piece of scrap paper. You can use scratch cardstock for this one. We're not folding anything. And cardstock might actually be a little bit better to do for the first time, simply because it's a little more rigid, a little bit easier to handle as you're moving around the circle. So the autumn leaves punch is a chain style punch, meaning that it punches its design, which releases from the paper. Today, I'm going to be using a border maker cartridge that is an edge style, the Sunshine Arches, meaning it's going to stay attached to the paper, which means I'm going to be, instead of creating a ring, I am creating a disc. And I played with this yesterday. So here's the disc that I made with Sunshine Arches out of At the Lake, Fast to Fab inspired paper, the cover stock from that. So I played with it to make sure that I could get the measurements the way I wanted, that everything was going to come together. So you can see here, I'm making a disc. So that's going to be the biggest difference versus making the ring, which is shown in the original video, but I'm making a disc. I am using I am using Buttercup cardstock for this because I like the way the Buttercup looks with the blue and the orange and the green of the paper that I'm using. So just use whatever works best for your layout. I'm putting my little triangle pieces to the side. Now, the technique that I'm going to show you works pretty well for every border maker cartridge, but every border maker cartridge is a little bit different. Sunshine Arches goes in the round really, really well, just because it's all contained within one bite. Each bite is separate. You're basically creating almost like petals on the flower where the pattern doesn't overlap. You don't have to punch twice to see the complete pattern. So that's something to keep in mind. Punches that are going to go also would work well is like you could do grass. These are ones I just have sitting on my desk right now. I have a lot of stuff just kind of stacked away. Grass goes really well. You may just have to play with it a little bit. If you are doing this on scratch paper, that you're playing with it for the first time, you actually can experiment with your punches, different punches all the way around, and see which ones connect okay and which ones are not going to connect okay. But that details kind of a different video probably to really experiment more with that. So I'm going to stick just doing Sunshine Arches but no, you may have to play around a little bit. All right, so I've got my buttercup. I'm going to position it, center it on my layout. Whenever I'm doing jumbo circle work, I always center it. It just gives me uniform pieces. Center everything in here. And then since we are doing a border maker cartridge, I need the blue blade on the outside track. Blue blade, outside track is the place to start when you're experimenting with border maker cartridges. Also, if you're using the frame punches. All right. So you're going to want to have a pencil nearby. With blue blade, outside track. I'm going to go ahead and cut all the way around. I do not want my template to move. I got to get my pressure on those pads. It moved a little bit on me. It's going to be okay because I'm punching the edge. So I'm going to be where I've got this little bit, it's fine. It's going to punch off. So now that I've done that, what I want to do is when you're using border maker cartridges, you can actually pull away the outside bit here because of where we're marking our piece. I'm going to grab some scissors and just snip this rather than tearing it. If you're using the border punch and you need to mark every 30 degrees, it is sometimes easier to mark it based on the markings on your jumbo circle, because the 30-degree lines we've covered up with our jumbo circle itself. But that's for the blue and white border punches. We're using a BMC, so I only need to mark at the 0 every 45 degrees. So every 45 degrees is going to be up here at the 6-inch, and then you can see the corner lines coming out. There's my 45. Come over here at 6 inches again, and then down here to this 45. And just work your way around at the 45-degree marks. Light touch with your pencil. If you're working with designer paper, you want to work from the back side of this. This would be the back of my designer paper, as long as the back side will let you see the marks. Now, the next thing we're going to do here is, this is where we start punching. So I'll put my border maker cartridge in here. You will want to know where the middle of your BMC is. So depending on the design you're using, Sunshine Arches is great because there is a nice little peak at the top there that helps me line up the middle. But depending on your BMC, you might need to mark the center yourself. Grass is kind of that way. If I were to be using grass to go all the way around, there's really no middle. So what I would maybe do is take my ruler or just kind of figure out where that middle point is. And really what I'm looking for is uniform of punches. And I'm placing my punch in the same spot every single time. So by having a middle, I just know that that's where my pencil line lines up, and I'm getting the same punch every single time. All right. You are going to work from the back side, meaning you're going to just put it in your cartridge and you're going to be, turning it upside down when you use it, feeding in your paper. The paper is not going to go all the way into the very back of the paper holder. I'm actually going to show it so I can see a little bit of the top edge. I can see in the corner. It's kind of hard to show in the video, but there you can see. See how I can still see? I'm not all the way up. If I was all the way up there, I'd be, but I'm going to bring it down a little bit. All right. Line it up, double check it, and then punch. And I'm going to punch it every line, every 45 degrees. So yes, you're going to have some space between them, but just punch every 45 degrees. If this is your first time doing this, make sure you're practicing on scrap paper. Now, here's the thing. If you are working with scrap paper and you are wanting to play around with your punches, If you punch at 6, or if you punch at the first 2 marks, you can actually test your punches by then coming back in the middle and punching between. If they punch 3 in a row easily, you should be able to go all the way around. So what I would do here is if I wanted to, I could just come back in, punch in the middle. This is if I was experimenting with different punches. I could punch in the middle and I could say, yeah, looks great, those 3. Then what I could do is I could come over with a different BMC and I could punch another set. So I'd punch at another mark. I could grab a different BMC and punch here and then punch in the middle and see, oh, did it work out? Oh, no, it didn't work out, or yes, it did. So if you're wanting to experiment with your BMCs, you can do it on a scratch piece of paper. You're going to end up with kind of a wacky overall design, but you can just switch out your BMCs and work your way around, just making sure you can get 3 in a row. So you punch at one line, punch at the next line, and then punch in the middle. And if the 3 of them line up well, maybe sometimes they're not perfect. You may end up with a wedge or a little bit of fussy cutting, but what you're looking for is overall that they line up good enough. And then you could fussy cut between. But this is a great way if you have that scratch paper that you could experiment with the different punches all the way around. And you can get 3 or 4 different punches in here to experiment with. But I'm going to continue with sunshine arches because I want this to be just sunshine arches all the way around. So I'm just going to continue on. I may need to have a scrapbook live where all we are doing is playing around with punches in the round so you guys can see, because there is a lot that you can do. I've done various things. We've done the BMCs, we've done the blue and white punches, we've even done the shape punches in the round. We did that as part of a power hour. I don't remember when that was, maybe last January. There's some fun things. I do have a video out on YouTube that shows how to do that. Of course, then we did it for Power Hour. So there's an official there is a handout for it using those shape punches in the round. It's kind of fun. The thing with this is if you do mess up, that's what embellishments are for. But you can see here, I have a little wedge. I'm just going to be able to pull off. But sometimes you have bigger wedges that you just need to use the scissors. You do a little bit of fussy cutting. Couple more and I will have this done. The nice thing about this one is I don't have to fussy cut a lot. If you want a whole video just on cutting with the BMCs, I think if you go out, I have a video where I use the infinity chain. It's the same concept. Right, but I will definitely see about putting together a scrapbook live where we talk more about just punching in the round with the various things. It's definitely a technique that is fun to do, get you using your tools in a different way. All right, so there we go. Now I've got my sunshine arches rings, or my disc, I guess. It's more of a disc. It's not a ring. I could have, if I wanted it to be a ring, I could have come in with the red blade on the inside track, but there's a reason I didn't do that. And so largely because it actually needs to be the way the circles interact. Remember, I cut the other disc or the other ring with the red blade, and so you wouldn't even be able to see any separation. If I wanted to make this a ring, I would actually need to use the circle cutter and bring it out so that it would be cutting technically somewhere in the middle point where the jumbo circle can't reach. That's a great thing about the circle cutter is you can dial in that size. I might try that at the very end of the video. I kind of want to put it together and show you guys what it looks like as a disc before I potentially muck it up using the circle cutter to cut out a disc out of the middle that is somewhere in the middle of where this jumbo circle just can't quite reach. You know, you've got that, I don't want to, like the dead zone of where the actual plastic is. The circle cutter can reach this middle zone that our jumbo circle, you obviously can't reach with the pieces. So I do see Julie asking if I have a list of the border BMCs. Do I have a list? No, I do not have a list. Most of them follow a general principle that, and then you just kind of have to experiment. That is one area. Creative Memories has been releasing so many of them, but I have not kept up with what punches work well. But that is something that, you know, we put to maybe as a collaborative effort. If we do a scrapbook live, we can probably start to figure that out. You can do this with a circle cutter. What you would need to do is, I don't know I don't know the sizes of the circles, of the jumbo circles, at least off the top of my head. That could be figured out. You would just have to then set your circle cutter to those sizes and make those. It is going to be a little bit more challenging maybe to do this particular piece, only because with that circle cutter, you'd have to, you know, make sure you're starting and stopping in very specific spots. But to make your discs to be able to go in the round, for sure you can do with the circle cutter. All right. So this is what we got. This piece overlaps as such. This is going to sit on, I mean, the assembly, once you get the whole thing going here, goes together pretty quick. Look, it's nice and bright and sunny. Now I'm going to tell you, so one of the things, the overall piece here, you can see, I am not sure I have a lot of room to put my blue pieces. They do go up here at the top if I wanted to. I'm not sure because honestly, I kind of like seeing a little bit more green grass. I don't think I would use the cloud part. I think that's a little too much of a busy pattern against, I've got a lot of texture going on in the grass. So that part is, I think I would probably put these on there. So if you guys are just now joining me, don't worry, there is a video recording. This is all being recorded. I will have it uploaded to YouTube and you'll be able to go back to the very beginning and watch it. You also can go back onto the handout. There is a QR code on the handout that you would be able to watch my original video on how to make this exact version. This video from Scrapbook Live today, of course, is making this version. So if I were to come in here like such, I do think I need to go ahead and get this adhered down, use a little bit of repo adhesive, and then I'm going to come in with my regular adhesive. There it is. Just getting some adhesive. I don't know. I always like a little bit of repo adhesive in the corners because it doesn't add any bulk, so it really still folds well, but that adhesive kind of folds on itself and maybe sticks pretty good. I don't know. I just like putting a little bit of repo right over a fold and then folding. I haven't really experimented to see whether or not it makes that much big of a difference. I just feel like if I were to put actual adhesive on the fold, it just adds bulk to the fold so it can't be crisp. But maybe it doesn't matter. Okay, so there is a little bit of a direction to my clouds, though I think some will ultimately end up upside down. The other part that I want to do is when I originally cut this, the punch, when I made the punch, if you can tell here, I've got a petal at the 6 inches, petals in the middle. However, when I put this on, see how the design, because the overall way this measured out is my design sticks out beyond my peaks of my circle. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to rotate my sun shine arch disc, rotate it a little bit so that the 6-inch marks are actually in the valley of my petals all the way around. And then I'll be able to come in here and put this on. And now you don't quite see as readily that this circle right here is actually a little bit smaller than the original, the disc back here. So this setup would be exactly what is on the handout. And then you would be able to come in. I do tell you what I use to finish the layout, the sizes of the paper. I give you all the directions there, but I used, let's see, I made mats that are they're 4x5 mats. And then you can use those with 3 3/4 by 4 3/4 mats or photos. I really shouldn't say mats there. You can cross that out. So that is to make that handout. Now, what I want to do is I'm going to come back here and I want to see if I can use my circle cutter. I would love to have a little bit more of that true ring style with the sun. Now, going a little bit more of a sun here, it kind of looks nice because it does give that illusion of the sun behind it, maybe with all of those petals. It looks kind of floral. But what I want to do is I'm going to come in, I'm going to grab my circle cutter, and we're going to give that a whirl and see if I can cut out a design here in the back so that I can kind of make this a ring. What I'm hoping to do is to be able to right about, you won't be able to see it, right about there and right about there. I think those are across from each other. So I'm going to measure that distance. I'm going to take off this, we'll take off these pieces, get back down to my ring here. I'm going to measure between here and here, and that should give me my size of that I want to cut out. And it looks like I want to cut roughly a 9.5-inch circle out of the middle of this. Now this could turn into a hot mess, so I would not play around with this. Practice first. So let's go ahead and we're going to do a 9.5-inch circle. But before I do that, I need to find the middle of my pattern here because I need to be able to line up the middle of my circle cutter so that I can center that circle. Thankfully, with my particular design here, I have these lovely peaks of my the design that I will be able to line those up at the 6 inches, and that's going to give me my middle. I can use my ruler. I am going to flip this over to technically be working on the back side. I'm going to do that. I can still see my original pencil marks, so I can line that up as well. I'm going to use my ruler, and I am going to find the middle. I'm going to make a pencil mark in the middle. I'm going to make it big enough, make it pretty. I don't need to go edge to edge, but I am going to go pretty generous. There's the middle of my layout, or the middle of my disc. Now I've got to grab my circle cutter. Here's my circle cutter. All right. Now I have a separate video on how you can watch to get your circle cutter measured so you know where the middle of your circle cutter is. So we have a pivot point that comes right here. This is our pivot point. So we can see the lines here that tells us where we're lined up. First of all, I need to set that at 9, what did I say? Did I say 9.5 inches? Now I gotta go measure that again. I need a secretary that's writing these things down as I'm doing this. I think it was 9.5. Yes, 9.5 inches. So one side of this is centimeters, the other side is inches. There's the 9, and I am gonna go ahead making sure I'm looking at the white measurements. The white measurements is for the blade. The darker measurements is for if I were to put a pen in this outside hole. I want it to come over here. Now they don't technically have 9.5 on here. I'd have to go 9.2, 0.4, 0.6. I'm actually going to go at 9. We'll go between 4 and 6. It doesn't have to be exact. Somewhere in there is good. Tighten it up. Now this is my pivot point. The other thing that I've done, I don't know if you can see in there, I've got some marks. Do you see how those lines are in there? I've got those marked, and I can turn my circle, turn my blue thing here to line those up with my center line. It's hard to see. I'm having to look under. I'm going to spin this thing so I can see. I think Nicole if you were look up Nicole's scrapbook, because I think she has like a little thing. It's like using a Post-it note, and it's like the most brilliant thing ever. I just haven't done it enough with her technique to show it to you confidently, but go check out her video. All right. I am going to I feel like I'm going to be too big. I'm going to test it. Okay, I'm just going to push down on this outside edge and do a little tip. Nope, it's good. All I wanted to do was just, I put a little divot there to tell me where it is. All right. So now I know where that is. It looked good. I'm far enough away from that outside edge. And we'll go ahead and I'm actually going to dial it in just a little bit. I decided I don't want 9.5, and there's a reason for that, and I'll explain it in a second. Hopefully it'll make sense once I do it. I'm going to dial this in to closer to 9 point, come to that 9.4, even down to 9.3. Just so I'm a little bit bigger. Reline things up. The challenge I have with this is that my sunshine arches are very, very flat against and so I want to make sure there we go. Okay. My sunshine pieces are very flat against here. So if I had it too close to the edge, it would be very apparent. I wanted to give myself enough of a gap here that you weren't really obvious that it was like a curved line with these flat pieces around it. So here's my circle. My ring, now I've turned it into a ring. Let's go ahead and build it back together and see how that looks. Oh, I kind of like it. I don't know if I'm going to put all the blue pieces back into place, but I certainly can show you guys what it looks like. I'm going to flip this over. There it is. So that worked, turning that edge style into a circle or a ring. I like it. I see a little bit more of that green in there, which then allows me to bring in these outside pieces to make it feel a little bit more finished in these corners. I still have some space in here if I needed to. I do need to adjust, though, these two corners because there is a direction to those waves. I want to make sure they all line up. And then I will be able to come in with some other additional details to support my photos. But that is the overall design there. I think it looks fantastic. I'm excited how it came together. It's a little bit of erasing to do where I pencil marked to get my overall size of that ring. I ended up, if you're taking notes, I ended up on that circle cutter, I ended up about 9.3 inches. So somewhere between between the 2 and the 4 to get this size. So that worked out really, really well. So again, if you don't have the circle cutter, it feels a little redundant, especially since we do have the custom cutting system. The custom cutting system, oh, it's slick. I mean, right, it's one of the best tools we've got. But the circle cutter, the fact that you can go in and dial a size is amazing, right? I needed a size that was not doable by my jumbo circle. I'm in the dead zone here where I can't get something with the custom cutting system here. Circle cutter does it, no problem. All right, so that's the layout. I'm still going to put things down. I am going to go ahead. I'll probably add some the photos, just placeholders. I don't have any photos to go on this. I actually did with my my customers yesterday. We did a Zoom crop where we put together a project recipe, and I used some of these same things going for new pictures in our backyard, our new backyard of our house. And so I think this is going to be just part of that same album. Just this screams Arizona summer, sunshine. We do, and maybe not a ton of green grass. We have some grass in our backyard, but swimming pool, sunshine, you know, warm colors because, well, Arizona's warm. So, and we're getting down there in June. We have a huge pool in our backyard, so it'll be a lot of fun to get those photos of Cody playing in the pool and just lounging and so forth. So I'm really excited with how this turned out. Thanks, guys, for sticking with me as I worked through it. Some of the stuff, especially at the end, creating that ring with the circle cutter, I'm glad it came and worked because in my mind it should, but sometimes my mind and reality are a little bit disjointed. So I think that's all I've got for you today. I will be back next week. My goal is hopefully to be back next week, and then most of the weeks of May. I really looking at my calendar, May looks pretty good. When I get to June, things start to get a little bit dicey. I'll probably be able to come in for the first week, maybe the first 2 weeks of June, and then I probably will be out for 2 to 3 weeks as we're doing the move. I've already was discussing with my husband saying I need to make sure that my video stuff, my basic scrapbooking things are readily accessible to me once we get moved into our new house so that I can be popping on the internet, working with you guys, because I know it may be summer, but it's definitely time to still scrapbook. And besides, it's going to be like 100 million degrees outside. So there's nothing better to do on the super hot afternoons than to sit inside and scrapbook. So thanks for joining me. Like I said, I'll be back next week. I'm not sure what the project will be, but we'll do something. And I am going to put the punching in the round. Oh, I know. Next week, we're going to talk about sketches again. We're going to go through working our way from a basic sketch all the way through how you can make, go from a very basic sketch to, I don't want to say advanced, but just definitely more detail into it. But I will add to my calendar that we are going to do the punching in the round and talk more specifically about it. So start setting aside some scrap paper, start, thinking about that so you can have those pieces available for you. We'll do that sometime in May. So you'll have all those supplies ready to go. All right, guys, thanks for joining me. I'll get this posted to YouTube later so that you can watch, or it'll get posted here soon, so that you can watch it if you came in late and didn't get to see the first part. So thanks for joining me. I will see you all soon. Bye.